right, what is going on, guys? Out of the Park Pod here with, and I say your name Garrison. Should I should
Yep,
I call you
that's it.
Garrison? Is that what you go
Sure.
by?
Yes, sir. That's it.
All right, awesome. And so what do you do, Garrison? Explain to the viewers that a little bit about yourself.
Well, wear of many hats. Um, what a lot of people probably know me for on the socials is previous baseball playing and coaching experience. Currently with Ink Sports Performance right now. Me and my business partner Rob Blanc, who some people may or may not have seen, does really lengthy breakdowns on the Instagram and X and pretty much any other social platform that he uses. He just goes ham on it. But we met whenever we were both working at Tread at the time, and then decided to branch off and do our own thing with Inked. Just helping guys get better any way, shape, form possible. Um, but yeah, man, I mean, could go way back as far as you want. If you want to go to the wee days of me playing Little League, I don't know how far back you guys want to take this thing.
I mean, we can start with Little League experience. That'd be great.
Man, I mean, everybody has that Little League story, right? Where you know, one day you want to play on the big field and the big league stadium that you go and watch with your dad or someone on your family. And for me, it was the Cardinals, right? So being in a small town in Arkansas, smack over, look it up, small 2,000 people, maybe less than that. One little stoplight in the middle of that, like four-way stop signs that you normally see.
Yeah.
Have a light there that is in a pole in the ground. So not the ones that hang from the wires. This is like one of the last ones you can see. So you can kind of see that how trending in that direction, baseball was kind of the escape out of the little small town,
Hmm.
right? And I'm sure anyone else listening to this can probably kind of relate a little bit as well. But that was essentially it. And everyone else getting into all the other mischief, I was very dead set on, hey, I'm gonna go be a professional baseball player, and that kind of steered me into the whole direction of where I'm at now. And reflecting back, it was good to kind of keep me out of trouble with how committed I was to it all, right? Where you're trying to keep your nutrition locked in, trying to stay out of trouble, not doing any crazy stuff with girls or drinking, partying, all that good stuff, right? Still can enjoy life, but it kind of pulled on the reins for you to not take that too far
Hmm.
whenever you're living in the middle of nowhere. Um, but yeah, with that motivation, like obviously that came from trying to learn and take in as much information as possible. Whether that's back in the day, this was, going to, you guys might laugh at me, but my dad took me for the first time to like a little ABC baseball camp, right? And we met Tom House there. So from there, it's like, oh, hey, this guy knows how to coach pitchers because he never pitched in his life. So he's trying to search out and find other guys that could help me be better at the craft that I wanted to be good at,
Hmm.
right? So the essence of that kind of really boils down to being that continual lifelong learner led to me having all this knowledge, becoming a coach, wanting to pass that down to the upcoming generation of players, and now as those guys are coming up, now it's kind of giving them a little bit of knowledge of where some of this stuff came from, the background from it, and not to get caught up in some of these little gimmicky stuff that you see on Instagram of all these reels of do this drill to gain 5 miles an hour, right?
Yeah. They're everywhere now. It's like everyone. It like I see it all the time. All over my feed is just like people putting like these. I mean, it obviously works, but I don't think it like it's a little fabricated. Like it's not like a lot of them I see. It's
Oh,
like gain 5 miles an hour right now. It's like most likely
yeah.
not gonna help you do it right away. It's a whole process, and that's what I've learned like just over my years of playing that it's a whole process. And like I mean, I guess they're using their words to their advantage. Like it gets viewers because I mean, I when I was like I would say like middle school and like high school and everything, seeing like these videos that are like they're saying, "Oh, you can gain velo doing this." Like it's good to know that type of stuff, but I also came to reality that it doesn't necessarily always do it right away. And that was like a harder thing for me to kind of as I discovered that as I kind of kept playing on and into college that it takes so much more to be able to throw, let's just say like 90. Like it's so difficult to actually hit that. There's just so many little things that you kind of have to tweak, and that's But I mean, I credit all the people that make content and stuff. They know how to use their words correctly.
Sure. Oh yeah, man. I mean, that's the biggest thing is a lot of things are taken out of context, I think, especially with the reels or like, a kid who sees something and they're like, "Oh, this guy who's in the pros does this drill, so maybe I need to do it too." I'm like, "Well, he did a whole lot of other work to get up to that point." Yeah, I mean, clickbait stuff just hate to see it for a lot of guys, but they'll, it's the next flavor of the month, right? They're trying to go in and try something, all
Mm-hmm.
right? They'll go in and next time they go throw, they'll do something, and then all of a sudden they feel better. It quote unquote fixed whatever they were trying to do, but they don't know why it did that or you know how it actually helped. And then all of a sudden they start trying everything that they see. It's just a never-ending cycle,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. So
Yeah.
sometimes some guys need a little bit of guidance because there's just so much information out there now. I'm sure you guys can attest to that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
100%.
Was content something you were like kind of, I don't want to say forced to get into, but was it something like that you weren't going to get into and then kind of came into like later in the game, or have you always just kind of wanted this and been wanting this?
I honestly started my Instagram page of just kind of sharing my journey in general, and it evolved into me just adding value because I saw all the extra crap that was out there that was just like, it's this isn't it. So you were trying to, I was indirectly trying to call out some of the stuff, being like, hey, like this isn't actually what works. But also, again, like whoever's listening to this and other people that see my page, they're just like, oh, okay, this guy just genuinely is trying to share and educate people, not trying to make a buck, not trying to go in and sell you on the next program.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like
Yeah.
that's not the motive that I have. My motive is to help guys be independent thinkers. And I constantly post sometimes on take the blue pill versus the red pill. If anyone's seen the Matrix movie references, right? I'm a huge movie buff. But having that as a reference, you're like, hey, you can keep doing the same thing everyone else does, be stuck in that forever cycle of just not knowing what's going on, or you can take the red pill and actually zoom out a little bit, see the bigger picture, see how things work, see why, you know, X drill or why, just locking down your nutrition and sleep and hydration is probably going to do better than any other drill hack
Mm-hmm.
out there, right?
Yeah, 100%. Cause I know that, like, just I would say like more towards the end of my high school career, I was following along with everything that Trevor Bauer was putting out and stuff like that. So I
Hmm.
can say that I was one of the people that tried everything he did, and I did see results in velo. I saw that I was throwing harder and everything like that. But then like I slowly noticed like it like hit me. I was like, okay, this guy has been training for how many years now? He has done so much more work than I've done. So how I can't necessarily almost mimic what he's been doing. And so that's it kind of just hit me one day that like I still incorporate some of the stuff that he does, but
Sure.
it's like you're never like every baseball player is different. You not everything's going to work for every single player. So that's why I kind of got away from doing all that type of stuff. Now I still listen, like he's my favorite baseball player, so I still follow all of his content, everything like that. But it was just something that I kind of had to do as I got older, is not follow every single thing that he does.
Oh, sure. Well, that's how we learn is we kind of imitate the people that we like, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we all probably played wiffle ball in the backyard. We were doing like, certain swings. Like I remember doing Gary Sheffield or like other impersonations of swings or throws. Like, and that's just how you kind of learn how to move because
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to imitate someone else's, you know, authentic patterns, but you also have to find your own authentic movement patterns because you are you. You're not Bauer 2.0, right? Like
Yeah.
you need to find out who you are and find out, hey, I may like this, but maybe I put my own little twist to it. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but you just know, hey, like I only like doing two plyo drills. All the other ones can kick rocks because I really don't feel good whenever I do those.
Mm-hmm.
And I, funny enough, trained at some of the same places that Bauer did. Heard some stories about him. This was back at the Texas Baseball Ranch before he was drafted whenever he was at UCLA, right? And he pick and chose what he worked hard at with certain exercises and drills that they did there. He didn't do everything balls to the walls,
Mhm.
which I thought was kind of interesting. But the things that he was really good at also kind of helped put him in a more advantageous position.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've followed his content too, and I think he's a very knowledgeable dude. We kind of he's a few years ahead of me, and kind of getting into the history of how all this happened, right? Like everybody nowadays knows about Bauer, but like, okay, how did he come about? Who came before him? And I mentioned Tom House before, and he's kind of known as the godfather of pitching coaches, right? Because before him, there was no pitching coach, right? Like
Mhm.
your Satchel Pages, your Babe Ruths, like all these guys that were out there playing, like they didn't have a coach. They just went out there and freaking threw the ball,
Mhm. Yeah, now it
right?
seems like
So like,
everywhere.
yeah, it was a lot more authentic, and I don't want to keep using that word, but it's something that was a little bit more naturally reoccurring. Where it was like, hey, like I got to throw and get this guy out. Okay, how you do it? The rule is you got to start with your foot on this plate and then figure it out,
Yeah.
right? Like came up with a bunch of different ways, but once Tom House started taking things over, he started breaking things down biomechanically. Whenever the first biomechanic lab started out, and he was trying to get everyone to look like Nolan Ryan or Randy Johnson, and he would say, "Hey, these are the principles or the checkpoints," and he was still, on the right track with a lot of stuff. But to your point, exactly what you were saying before is like, "Hey, you're not Bauer. No one's Nolan Ryan," and that's kind of rabbit hole that I fell down. Was I was trying to be a left-handed Nolan Ryan with a super high leg kick and basically do all the same stuff
Mhm.
that he did and have a 20-year long career and break his strikeout record. Like that's the type of you know delusion that I had.
Yeah.
It's sad to say, but, it's just like, hey, like whenever you want to make it big, you got to have big dreams, big goals, and try to shoot for those. But it started from there, and then Tom House had other coaches that he kind of coached up. My dad was one of them. Ron Wolforth was one of them, and a bunch of other people kind of branched out from there. So I mentioned the Texas Baseball Ranch. That was where Ron was at. Trevor trained at the Texas Baseball Ranch, right? And there was a bunch of other schools of thought. You got Don Drysdale, you got Mike Marshall, which is where the whole pivot pick thing came in. Not sure if you guys know any research behind that, but just look up on YouTube one day if you guys get bored, especially for you listeners. Look up Mike Marshall and just go to town on any of his drills that he does. So the whole thing with this, like he was having guys throw 7, 10, and 20-pound wrist weights. That's where the whole wrist weight thing came in, was through his methodology. Ron took some of that and just kind of threw it in as one drill and called it the Marshall drill or the walking Marshall, where you kind of walk into it as like a walking pivot pick, basically. Then from there, Trevor was training, did his whole thing. He ended up linking up with, and I'm kind of fast forwarding here and brushing through a lot of stuff, but he got through with Kyle Bodie, and Kyle decided to take all those same drills, rename them into what they are now, which is pivot pick, roll ins, all that stuff. Right. So they were already done before. He just packaged it a different way and started selling plyo balls. Trevor bounced over there with him because he's going to bring on all this newer technology and not be as blue collar as like a ranch style, you know, training facility was. And that was cutting edge like back in 2012, back whenever I was in high school. Whenever I graduated, like that's where everybody went to if you wanted to try to train like Bauer. Um, but you go from that, then now evolving to what Driveline is now, or how it kind of spruced up. And I remember seeing interactions with guys on what was then Twitter. You had Matt Daniels and Trevor Bauer and Kyle Bodie literally having full on conversations about player development on X. I was just sitting there listening to it all and chiming in here and there. And sure enough, you see all that stuff explode. I'm again 2, 3, 4 years behind, so I'm still playing as these guys are. Bauer's playing. Matt Daniels is going off. He's learning how to coach, and he's starting to build up the whole driveline side. And then you guys kind of know the story of how all these other coaches just start sprouting up and how a bunch of other different ideals come from. But it's funny to me how seeing since probably early 2010 to now, 15 years later, not a lot of people know like where some of these drills and things came from, what they're even what they were even trying to do in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, like you said, there are so many places now. I know, like last year, it would have been towards the end of my season. I was looking in because like I have my a pitching coach like that I had throughout high school, everything like that. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna still work with him, but then I was looking at all these other different programs. So I was in contact with people
There's
from
a
like,
lot.
yeah, it's insane because they all provide like they all obviously like their whole pitch is like you're gonna gain velocity, everything like that. So when I was like
Sure.
talking to all these representatives, it's like they're they all do the same things kind of just differently. Cause like when I talked to Driveline, like they were telling me all the technology they use and everything like that. Then I was on with
That's
Tread,
the big deal.
yeah, and then I was on with like Tread and stuff, and it's like they're doing this type of stuff. And then I kind of just got like opinions from like coaches and players that I
That
play with that have
originated
done.
from Driveline too, right? Like Ben started in with Driveline. He was actually the first one of the first strength coaches there,
Hmm.
and then he branched off. Was still trying to play into the White Sox organization, and funny enough, Ben hired me over a Chipotle bowl. Like we just sat and talked around. I was coaching at Limestone College down the street, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to come work for me?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, sounds cool."
Wow.
I had some previous experience too, so kind of talking with Texas. Randy Sullivan, who now has his own like Florida Armory thing, he was also part of the ranch for a while, and I ended up having a shoulder injury in college, and after the fact, um, I went down to him and he had this throwing sock. So I'm sure some of you guys have probably seen that on the socials, right? Where you kind of put this. At the very first version of it was a long tube sock
Hmm.
with a 7 ounce plyo ball stuffed down in there, and you just tie it to your wrist, and then you have a nice little rope burn on your wrist after doing it. But they evolved it to what it is now. The guys down in Texas, the oat specialty guys, they created that whole like really tough wool sock, um, which I think definitely helps. So I started to do that, learned a lot from him, decided to go work for him after the fact because my arm was shot, couldn't play professionally at all because of just how bad it was. So went down the rabbit hole, went to Taiwan. I was gonna show you guys this. I got this sick little glove
Wow.
from
That's sweet.
this is from Taiwan actually. Um, nice little all star. But if you guys remember Chen Ming Wong
Hmm.
back in the day, he was well, he was a Yankee and then ended up having to rehab back. So whenever he broke his foot with the Yankees, he went and trained to try to rehab with Randy and I whenever we were down there working. I was kind of more of the strength, but also did a lot of the throwing stuff there. But Randy was kind of the physical therapist and obviously head guy. But he brought us down 2 years in a row, 2017 and 2018, to go train all the kids out there in Taiwan, which I thought was really, really sick experience. Going to a different country and you have a translator beside you the whole time and you're trying to show them how to do a lift or how to do a throwing drill, right? But it's you come to realize that hey, baseball a lot more than just a game. It brings a lot of other people together. Um, but you know, everybody's there, same reason, just trying to have that one little thing to help them be the best player they can be.
Yeah. No, yeah, you can definitely learn so many, just like in general, like life lessons from playing baseball.
Oh, no doubt.
And that's why I love playing. Like, I mean, obviously, I want to at some point hopefully make it professionally, everything like that. But I've learned so much over the years just from playing and like being able to like work with a team and just to try all these different things. That there's been so many life lessons that the sport has taught me, and I wouldn't have learned it had I not played baseball. And I guess that would go for any sport as well. You just learn something
Oh,
in every
sure. Well,
sport.
yeah, there's something to it where kind of where I was alluding to at the back, where I was always trying to learn all these things and getting on all these forums, going to all these camps, and trying to just absorb as much information as possible, right? Like you develop these things of a continual learner mindset, or hey, I'm learning how to do and try and error certain things, kind of like how a scientist would, right?
Hmm.
Learning how to do things through the scientific method, not just hey, I'm going to grab and try this thing randomly and see if it works, right?
Yeah.
Like
Hmm.
even Thomas Edison, who came up with the light bulb, right? He did a crap load of different things, but he had a method to how he was doing all this, right? He's like, okay, hey, this doesn't work, and then goes back to the drawing board, and he's okay, hey, we're gonna try the next thing. Oh, that didn't work. We're gonna try the next thing. He was still relentless in the pursuit of it, but he had again that systematic approach versus just kind of throwing shit on the wall and seeing what sticks there.
Mm-hmm. So what was like the fastest you ever threw?
Fastest ever threw, I touched 91 in a fall JUCO World Series thing back in 2014. And then that same year, I was like the number 2 starter at a school down here in North Carolina, a little junior college, and all the way up, pitched through the whole season pretty well. Had a few D2s and D1 offers. They were kind of looking at me. We get to the championship game, and again, we're like a lower seed, so we weren't headed to win, but we were playing the guys who were the number 1 seed in the second game of the playoffs. So we were like, 5 or 6 seed. We go in and we play them. I started on the bump that game, and I go full 9 innings, 120 pitches. And I'm over here throwing everything I got. I got the fastball, I got curveball, I got changeup, I got the split finger that I pulled out because no one else saw it earlier in the season. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to show you something different,
Mm-hmm.
right? 120 pitches in, and yeah, my shoulder was never the same after that. And that's kind of where I ended up finding Randy Sullivan and started doing the throwing sock to kind of try to rehab the shoulder without having surgery, because no other school would take me if I was going to say, hey, I'm going to go under the knife, but can you recruit me? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it was more of like me having a survival instinct of like, hey, I got to learn how to still throw and show up to whatever school I commit to and figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, never got back up to that 90 or really upper 80s. I sat around, maybe touched 84, was like 80, 82. And sure enough, found out that I had, pretty significant tear in the labrum, but still taught myself how to throw through it with, asymptomatic, results. So I could still throw and pitch and do everything. I just couldn't throw very hard. But I
Yeah.
just kept riding it out and was like, hey, well, I can have surgery. I got 2 more years left. And if I had, maybe COVID years or thought about it a little bit more, maybe I could have done something differently. But I just decided to roll with what I got and forego surgery. So
Yeah, it's crazy because I feel like that kind of your like what you're doing now all kind of relates back to when you got injured, and I feel like you might be playing, maybe even still be trying to play if you never got injured. So it's cool to see that like you could take something that hurts others like an injury, or take something that is just kind of devastating and turn it into something positive and flip it into what you do now and with your life.
yeah, it's just how you still use all the knowledge and everything that you learned how to do. And I was a little bit of a realist with it. I was like, hey, best I ever threw was 91. Like, I got dudes that I'm training here now that as I was coaching, I'm like, they're throwing 95 and they're like a year or two younger than me. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I can probably hang up the cleats,
Yeah.
you know. But it's something that every single one of us do that play the game, man. We got to end up hanging up the cleats eventually, whether it's whenever you're 12 or whenever you're 40, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
Verlander's still playing, and I remember watching him at the 2006 World Series back in the day. Right? Like, dude's been playing forever.
It's
Just
crazy
got
how
to keep
long he's.
good.
I saw he just signed with the Giants.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, he did. I hope he does well, man. I mean, he's just chucking along with all those 1 year deals
Yeah.
right now, but
They said he'll be
I'd love to
traded
see
back
that
to
guy.
the Astros at the deadline.
Yeah, who knows? He'll probably get traded back there again. He just,
Yeah.
keeps getting his paycheck and then having
Mhm.
another team pay for whatever he
Exactly.
has going on.
Yep.
And he gets those
Oh
big
man.
paychecks. He gets
Yeah.
massive deals still. Like,
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
he could still
Well,
throw.
you guys know how like all the arbitration and stuff works with big league guys, right?
like a
So
little bit, yeah.
a little bit. So kind of give you an example. So and Trevor May is a great follow for anyone listening to this because he kind of breaks it down more than anyone. But for example, we'll come up with a recent one. Walker Bueller, right? Just left the Dodgers to go to the Red Sox. what they have to come out to do if the Dodgers wanted to re-sign him, right, or Verlander to the Astros or whoever, whatever team he's with, they wanted to re-sign him. They have to have basically a legitimate offer. They call it a bunch of different things, but if it doesn't hit a certain mark, then they're not even going to go forward with it because as many years as he has within the league, they have to offer up a certain amount for it to be an actual legit offer. And what happened with Walker was he was like, hey, like, you go try to stay here with LA. And they're like, hey, you're probably better off just betting on yourself and going somewhere else and getting more money that way. Right. So as these players get older, all they want is these 1 year deals because that's how they're going to max it out. Unless you're like a Juan Soto, or guys whenever they're younger, they can kind of, the teams are going to bet on him to stay with them longer and have that longevity. But obviously, that life as a player gets shorter. Those deals become shorter and shorter because of that.
Yeah, I'm not a. I know this is probably a controversial thing, but I'm not a big Juan Soto guy. I don't think he's worth the money that they paid him.
I don't think it's controversial. I mean, I don't think Brock Purdy should have got paid $60 million either for the San
He
Francisco
actually
49ers.
they signed Brock
There's
Purdy. I did not
Yeah.
know that. I thought he was still on his little
yeah.
rookie deal.
Well, he just finished it this past year, and
Wow.
he didn't play the last game because he was trying to stay healthy and end up getting signed. But I think they signed him before he decided not to do the last game. But yeah, man, a lot of these guys. I mean, yes, they're really good at what they do, but being and coaching around a lot of these guys, they're all just normal dudes, right? Like they're putting their pants on the same way, dude. And I know a lot of people hear that all the time, but it's like, look, they just caught a really good break, or they were at a really good point in their career where they were able to advance, and someone made a bet on them, essentially. Like, you know, funny story with some of the other players that I've coached. They're like, hey, like I was just there playing. They were trying to recruit someone that I was playing against, and I had a really good game, and turns out they took me instead. Right? Like you never know who you can kind of stumble into, or who you're playing against, or who knows who. Even if the scout's not in the stand, their coach might know someone. It's kind of wild how, looking back, there was a lot of high school coaches that I knew or that I played for or played against that were quote unquote bird dogs, right? So they're kind of like the guys who scout around in the area, and they're seeing all these high school players, but they'll tell an actual scout or head scout or director or regional scout within the area, be like, hey, you got to come look at this kid. And then that's how they actually start to know who to go see.
So my question now is, do you think, now I know this is still probably a semi controversial one, but do you think personally that Trevor Bauer should be in the MLB?
Mm. I do personally think that he should get another chance to play. He was never convicted as guilty through all that stuff. However, I have talked to several pitching coaches in the professional level. This was like 2 years ago whenever I asked them the question. And they basically just said, hey, it's just bad PR. And that's really the only legitimate reason why they'll never probably take a chance on him, or at least these 4 or 5 handful of teams. It's not because the coaches don't want him. It's not because the manager doesn't want him. It's the owner or the GM, right, who calls all the shots, and they're like, nah, we don't want that, right? It's going to fish through a lot of the almighty dollar, but what they don't realize is there's guys like me and you who are huge fans of him regardless of wherever he goes, however much he signs for, right? Like he wants the league minimum, 550K or whatever it is now. I think it's 570. But, I mean, it's still pretty penny, but for him, I don't even think he hit arbitration, but I don't think he's gotten 10 years under his belt to where he gets full pension retirement. Right? So what you guys that are listening, you may not understand this. Once you hit a certain amount of years of status in the league, you don't get, and I think it's like 120 or something like that a year. But you don't get that retirement kind of similar to like someone else who has a normal job or like a firefighter or whatever. Once you retire, you can start collecting this at age 65 or whatever. But obviously, there's a gap for, let's say, Verlander. We were talking about him, right? He finishes playing at 33. Well, from 33 to 65, he's got to find a way how to make money somehow, right? And that's where a lot of these guys are stacking up all these 1 year deals so they can put some money back and help them last until they get to that retirement age. They can pull it earlier, but it's a lot of stuff that they're having to fish through and a lot of politics. But I think that's really his main reason. Yes, he wants to say like, hey, he can still play in the league, but you know, right now he's just kind of fighting to have that recognition, but also having something to still have as far as long term duration. Like he can play in the Mexican League probably until he's 40 if he really wants to, but Mexican League's not going to give him any type of retirement fund or pension or anything.
Yeah, I think it's smart what Shohei did, where he's getting paid like after he retires. The couple, I forget, he gets
Sure,
like,
the deferred payments.
yeah,
Yeah,
like it's
and
very smart.
I see that as a huge team player guy.
Mhm.
When someone does something like that, they're like, "Oh, hey, I won't take the money now, but I'll take it later."
Mhm.
They're one thing about their future, but two, they're like, "Hey, let's max out whatever we got for this team to go and win a ring, and I'll get paid later. I don't have to get it now."
Yep.
I think that says a lot about a guy's character. I think.
Hey, it ended up working out so
A
far.
lot of guys want that money. You're like, hey, let me get it now. Let me go ahead and get that check.
Yeah.
Let me get the new rolls or, whatever else they're looking.
They just signed that pitcher from was it Tokyo or
Yeah, the Tokyo guy.
yeah, I forget his name, but I did just see that they got him too now. So they're stacking up again, and who knows, they're
They're
gonna be tough to
rolling it
beat.
in, man.
Yeah, because Shohei can pitch this year, huh? He gonna be
Yeah,
able
he
to
should
pitch?
be back at least, I think.
That's crazy. He doesn't even have to pitch. They still will win.
Yeah.
They got a good team.
They
Oh yeah.
They got Glassno still.
yeah,
Tyler.
that like
Out of glass now.
Yeah,
He has carpal tunnel in his forearm
that's crazy.
wow. I
from
didn't know
as
that.
much injuries and stuff that he had. Yeah, yeah. Dude, a lot of these guys put themselves through the ringer.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, of course they're making millions, but you know, at what cost? That's
Yeah.
kind of where sometimes, as you get older, or as a lot of these pro guys get older, they're like, do I keep pushing? Do I keep trying to reach the limits to my body? Because at the end of the day, their mind's gonna want them to keep going out there no matter what. But
Mhm.
at some point, their body's just like, hey man, we've had enough. We've had 2 TJ surgeries. We've had a labrum surgery. We've done all this stuff. We got other things going on. It's like I want to be able to walk around whenever I'm 50.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why these
It can,
boxers and stuff, like I can't believe they're
yeah.
still fighting in their
Oh,
50s
dude, yeah.
and stuff like that. I'm like, dude,
I
this
couldn't
is
believe that
crazy.
Tyson actually got back out there and did it.
Yeah.
He's
I know it wasn't
He's
much of a
another
fight,
animal,
but
though, man.
yeah, he's an
yeah.
animal.
Wow. Especially for him being like if it was me personally, I wouldn't have done it. Like yeah, you got money, like you got a lot of money for doing all that, but like you were retired, like you're kind of enjoying your retirement. Now I get his mindset's totally different than what mine would be, but I don't think I could go back out there at such a at like he cuz he's I mean he's how old is he?
Probably around 60.
Is he he's in
58, I think.
something like that. That's got to put a lot, especially all the training. That's got to be a lot
Yeah.
on your body and just like you said, like the wear and tear. And for him to come out at 60 and do what he did,
Yeah.
like it wasn't the best fight, but like he got some shots in there,
Yeah.
especially with a guy that's so much younger than him.
Mhm.
It took balls for him to get out there and do that. And
30 years younger than
Oh
him.
yeah.
Crazy.
I was
Holy
talking to someone the other day. It was like, hey, imagine this setup for this boxing match in baseball terms. It'd be like Roger Clemens just coming out of the woodwork and be like, hey, Shohei, let's go, buddy. Like,
Yeah.
I'll strike you right now. Like you're just like, dude, this guy's way beyond his prime, but yeah, he could probably still, throw a splitter and do a bunch of other stuff with the ball and help him get the guy out. But you can't really compare it. It's like, hey, bring in like, early 2000s Clemens versus Shohei, and you're like,
mhm.
yeah, who knows what happened there?
Yeah, because there wasn't didn't Rich Hill pitch this year, and he's like up. Didn't he
But
pitch
he's
for
up there
the
in
Red
age too.
Sox? Yeah.
Yeah, during the '05 or '04.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I could be totally misquoting that, but he's been around for a long time.
And
Sure.
I'm pretty sure he pitched a couple games this year. I mean, yeah, like it puts a lot of stress on your body. Like even now, I'm only 21 and I feel like the stress every day of like lifting and throwing and stuff like that. I couldn't imagine being like 46 and still like doing all of that. Like yeah, it's nice. It's nice when the paycheck hits your bank account, everything like that. But at the end of the day, I feel like if it if I were in some of these guys' shoes that I'm like pushing 40, everything like that, I feel like I would just hang up the cleats and say, okay, I've done enough. I've had a great career. Now I kind of want to kind of preserve a little bit of my body for the rest of the years coming.
Sure.
So, I mean,
Because you got a lot of life to live. I mean,
mm-hmm,
if you think about it, and it's hard to grasp this, and you hear about older guys talking to you about this all the time. But as I'm getting older, I'm 31 now, but I probably have another 60 years to live,
mm-hmm,
roughly, right? If I'm lucky. And that means all the years before, I only lived a third of my life. So baseball is like maybe less than a third of your life if
mm-hmm,
you're lucky and you get to play college or professional, right? Let's say you play professional like Verlander, who's pushing into his 40s, right? It's still kind of a little over a third of his life. Um, and that's where I think when guys do come to grips with hanging up the cleats, and I've had a lot of conversations with guys on this too, is they really any athlete or any person who's done something for a long period of their life that your identity is kind of rooted in that a lot, but you also have to find your identity outside of the sport, outside of the
mm-hmm,
game. Like, hey, who am I? Who is Josh, right? Without baseball.
mm-hmm,
Oh, hey, I'm a human. I'm a nice guy. I'm a brother. I'm a son. Then what?
mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you still have value. You still have all these things that you can provide and give people, even outside of the sport, right? You're still a good human. You can still give kindness to everyone that you come in touch with and help encourage them with whatever they're going through or help bring them up, right? Like you have all these other qualities that doesn't always define your self worth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when you're especially guys who are really successful early on in their playing career, they root a lot of that self-worth in how good that they play, right? And then as they get older, if they start having some bad games, it crushes them because that's how they identify who they are as a person, which isn't true. You're still going to be the same person whether you win or lose. Obviously, you want to win, you want to keep continuing to press for that. But you got to disassociate yourself and kind of take a step back and be like, hey, I play a sport. The sport doesn't define who I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I feel like I'd be. Now it's just like a simple thought, but I feel like I'd be so like not lost, but like essentially lost without baseball. Like my days are
Sure.
consumed by doing all of this, like goals and everything like that. I mean, obviously, like we have this podcast. That's another thing I do. But the day that I don't play baseball anymore, it's just gonna be so different.
Sure, it's gonna suck, right? Like no one wants to give up the cleats. We all want to be
Mhm.
that little kid that dreaming and all has that. But now you get to redirect all of that stuff,
Mhm.
right? You still get to have all these goals and stuff, but now it's like, hey, am I building a business? Or, because a lot of athletes are really good entrepreneurs. Or if you don't have an entrepreneur spirit, if you're listening to this, right, like maybe you're going to do that to work your way up the corporate ladder, whatever it is that you choose to do,
Mhm.
right? Like not everybody's meant to be an entrepreneur. And I think that's another thing, kind of getting out of the zone of baseball, right? A lot of people see all these, hey, you got to grind, you got to do this, you can't sleep, right? You see all those type of reels. That is for people that are in real life, quote unquote, for the guys who are also, in parallel to what we were talking about earlier, the guys who are seeing all these reels of like, hey, do this drill to gain 5 miles an hour. It's like it's the exact same thing in personal development too.
Mhm.
I think personally, because it's like, look, as long as you're doing the best that you can do and you're maximizing all the talents that you have, you can't compare yourself to someone else that you see on social media that probably rented the Maserati that he's doing and having all these girls come in, or the Dan Bilzerians of the world, right?
Yeah.
Like you you can't compare yourself to that. There's no way
Yeah.
that's even feasible for any guys like me and you to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like that's the 0.001% of guys, and that's what everybody sees, unfortunately, on the socials.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, I just have one more question. I don't know if he has any more, but I had one more question. How do you feel about celebrations in baseball? Like on the mound or just like in
Oh,
general?
dude, I love them. I do think there is a fine line between celebrating and gloating,
Mhm.
in my opinion, right? So I still kind of, I guess you could say I'm in the middle ground. I'm not like the hard nosed, Jeff Fry guys that you see where you're like, oh, you shouldn't be flipping your bat, you shouldn't be doing anything, right? Like I think it's like, dude, you're emotional, you're trying to express yourself, you're gonna get excited, you're gonna get pumped up, you're in the moment, right? Guys black out and do crazy stuff too, right? But
Mm-hmm.
then there's a point where it's like, hey, like, all right, you did the bat flip, but now you're going around and I don't even know if there's a video of this anymore, but this is a great example. If you guys remember, it's a shortstop for the Mets. I think it was Jose Reyes, Dominican guy.
Mm-hmm.
He did the bat flip, and I think this for me, this is kind of whenever kind of the era where things started to change, where that flip happened. Hey, they were still kind of beaming guys, but he was running the bases. As he's rounding second base, he just starts flipping a bird to everyone. I'm like,
Wow, I've never
yeah,
seen
that's too
that.
far. Right. Yeah. I think they took it off, but I vividly remember seeing that on Sports Center and they like, blurred out his hand or
Yeah.
whatever and I'm like that is what you call too far in celebrating or showboating, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
once you get to first base, like trot your stuff, touch home, do your thing, celebrate with your dudes because you're with a team, right? And I think Coastal Carolina winning College World Series is another great example of this too. They the guy who closed to beat Arizona, he threw his glove up in the air, right? Like they were doing a bunch of other stuff celebrating, but he looked to the dugout, pumped his chest, right? And he was with his team. It was
Mm-hmm.
directed towards his team and towards his brotherhood. It wasn't towards the other dugout,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think the fine line is like, hey, how are you celebrating? Are you doing it in terms of actually celebrating maybe yourself or with your team, or are you trying to do it to piss someone off?
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's two different ways of doing that, right? Like, yeah, I'm all for flipping your bat. I'm all for having a quick little celebration after a double or a triple. You know, I think that's just kind of how the game's evolved. Um, but yeah, you just got to know when to draw the fine line and not direct it towards an opposing team or opposing player.
Yeah, that's what our college coach he talks to us all the time about. Like he likes us bringing energy, celebrating everything like that, but the one thing that he says is like we're not allowed to do anything towards the other team. Like he likes the double celebrations, everything like that, but it has to be everything we have to be facing towards our dugout. And I like I agree. Like there are some times where like people take celebrations wrong. Like we had an instance last year where this guy bat flipped because he thought it was a home run, but it ended up going foul. So then obviously like that's gonna fire our team up. There were some things said. Then he struck out and he tried to charge our dugout, and it was like, okay, well, he he deserved some of the things, but it's like, okay, well, he got really mad about that, and then it ended up with like almost benches clearing type thing, and like his coach was like, yeah, like his coach actually like went up to the umpire after when he was about to come up and like he made the umpire like make all of us move to like the opposite side of the dugout. Like we weren't allowed anywhere near home plate because he was
Yeah.
like he knew what we were going to start chirping the guy, and our coach was trying to keep us in check. And I mean that's probably the biggest like thing that we've had, but our coach is super big on like you can celebrate, but you have to celebrate with your teammates instead of taking it too far. And even when we like when we play against each other, like he's always saying that there's a fine line between like celebrating and
Mm-hmm.
doing too much. And like we have to remember at the end of the day, we're all a team. We're working together. Yeah, we're competing for spots. We're competing for everything during our games and everything, but at the end of the day, you can't disrespect your own teammates. And I love
Oh, for sure.
I love like that type of stuff. Like, yeah, it's fun. if you strike out your friend and like you say some stuff back and forth, but as long as you don't take it too far to the point where it starts to get personal or something, because we're all a team at the end of the day. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, one thing I will say, kind of similar topic, but the younger guys, I guess younger than you and probably more like middle school, high school age range, I'm seeing a lot of dudes like when they're hitting in the cages in between games and they'll kind of go talk to each other, not like talking smack, like they're literally just buddies,
Hmm.
but like they'll literally start making friends with each other before the game. And I'm like, dude, what are we doing? Screw those guys. We're about to play them. Like,
Yeah.
don't talk to them. We gotta stay in our zone and kind of get locked in, right? Like, if somebody you haven't seen in a while, like, cool, say what's up. Talk to them after the game, maybe. But
Yeah.
like, don't meet behind home plate and like start being all buddy buddy. I don't know. That just kind of rubs me the wrong way. I'm like, dude, you'd be friends with these guys. We're about to go to war.
Yeah. 100% agree.
Yeah. Yeah, my man. But yeah. Is there any questions for us at all, or do you have any questions for me or Josh at all, or?
Yeah. What are your guys' vision for out of the park? Like, where are you guys trying to take this? Now, you guys
So
have posted a few things on like pranks and stuff and
yeah.
gym things.
Mhm.
So it seems like you're getting a little bit more of a global
Yeah.
thing, but you're
That.
kind of looking to just bring in some aspects of things outside of what you see in the game, or where do you
Yeah.
kind of see it evolving?
That's actually kind of what our I don't know if we still have that in our logo, but we do have like a globe behind our logo, because our vision is to just do global stuff, just do everything, anything and everything. So obviously we love the
Yeah.
pod every Friday. That's never gonna change, but we just started posting. I call it IRL content, just vlogs, live
In
AB,
real life stuff.
pranks,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And so every other Thursday, so we'll post about 26 videos of that and 52 pods a year, and we just want to keep going and just keep grinding them out, and we'll see where it takes us. I'm excited. I feel like we got the ball in our court right now, and we're doing really well. And we've only been at this for a year, and I'm only 20, and he's only 21. So, like you said, you were saying earlier, baseball is a fraction of your life. I'm hoping this can be a fraction of my life where it sets us up for just success, and just I get to share my thoughts, and I'm thankful for it every day. So I enjoy the pod, and I enjoy doing this. And ever since I was a little kid, I knew I wanted to be on some sort of social media. From watching. I don't know why I always bring it up, like the Paul brothers and stuff. Like I was young, and I was like, man, like it would be cool to do what they do, um,
Sure, no
and
doubt.
like the FaZe clan and stuff. Like I'm huge into video games, and I'm huge into sports. Like I'm totally into all that. So, um, yeah, just ever since I was young, I kind of visioned this. So I knew I had to do it one way or another, and so we started at the end of 2023, and yeah, we're just gonna keep going, and we're super excited.
Sick. No, I love it, guys. Well, if you guys are playing video games, you're playing the show or anything else, and you're playing live, be aware of who you're playing. And I only say that jokingly because there was one time me and my buddy were playing, um, and turns out there was someone that we were talking smack about as we were playing the game, and then we transitioned to COD, and the same guy who we were playing against in the show was also the guy who he actually was. Name drop Josh Hader, and then he found us on COD a few days later and just started, you know, really talking smack to us. He's a funny dude.
Wow.
But yeah, a lot of those guys that you see that are, playing games on the big screen, they're playing video games, they're doing normal stuff like us too, and they have stuff to talk about outside of the park.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, man. Yeah, we're just gonna keep it rolling, and yeah. Do you have any last words? Anything you want to say or anything?
no, I think if any of you guys are listening to this, if you find anything that this resonates with you, whether it's, trying to find your own authentic movement patterns, maybe you're contemplating on either staying to continue to play or to hang up the cleats, right? I'm sure all of us would be willing to talk to you. My DMs are always open. Feel free to reach out and talk to either one of us because we want to help you and guide you along the right way, right? And making sure that you're making the best decisions for yourself. Um, Sometimes you just need another listening ear. right?
Yeah,
You,
for
you may
sure.
not have it all figured out. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much it. And if you guys want to follow me, it's at Royal Performance with the number 4. Ink Sports Performance is our website if you want to check it out. But again, I'm only working for a select few guys that are willing to grind, and I don't do it for money. I do it for guys that I know I can actually help.
Yep. Yeah. His socials will be, I believe, either above or below. Our socials will be on the screen as well, the entire pod. So, guys, go check him out. And thank you so much for hopping on with us and chatting with us, my man. I really do